You chose him. Now go to him.
You know what they say about karma? Sometimes she needs a GPS and a hot bag to find her way to your door. My name's Nick Harper, and I've been delivering more than just food for the past 6 months. I'm talking about reality checks, wake-up calls, and tonight, the biggest serving of truth this city's ever seen. But let me back up, because this story starts where most good revenge tales do, with me being an absolute idiot. It was a Tuesday night in October when my phone buzzed with an Uber Eats order. Nothing unusual there. I'd been doing the food delivery gig 3 nights a week to supplement my construction foreman salary. Jessica, my wife of 8 years, had been encouraging me to bring in more money. Her exact words were, "Nick, if you want to keep living like we do, you need to start acting like you deserve it." Charming, right? The order was sushi from Yamato. Expensive stuff, the kind Jessica ordered when she wanted to impress someone. The delivery address made my stomach drop. 1247 Riverside Drive, apartment 12B. I knew that address. Heck, I'd helped wire the electrical in that building 2 years ago when it was still under construction. Evan Dorn lived in 12B. Evan was Jessica's business contact, a real estate developer who wore $1,000 suits and drove a Tesla that cost more than I made in a year. Jessica had been working closely with him on some HR consulting project for the past 4 months. She'd mentioned him exactly 47 times in the last month. Yes, I'd been counting. Tonight, Jessica was supposed to be in Chicago on a business trip. She'd left that morning with her rolling suitcase and a kiss that felt like a handshake. I sat in my beat-up Honda Civic, staring at the sushi order on my phone. 2 salmon avocado rolls, 1 spicy tuna, 1 California roll, and here's the kicker, 1 order of chocolate mochi. Jessica's favorite dessert. The same dessert she'd ordered on our first date, our wedding night, and every anniversary since. "Well," I said to my empty car, "looks like I'm about to deliver more than dinner." I picked up the order, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. The kid at Yamato, probably 19 with more piercings than a tackle box, handed me the bag and said, "Have a good night, man." "Oh, I will," I replied. "I definitely will." The drive to Riverside Drive took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of me practicing what I'd say when I saw her face. 12 minutes of imagining scenarios where I was wrong, where there was some innocent explanation for why my wife was ordering her favorite meal to her business contact's apartment while supposedly 3 states away. By minute 11, I'd stopped hoping I was wrong. Evan's building was one of those modern glass towers that looked like it belonged in Manhattan, not our mid-sized Rust Belt city. I'd always hated it. Too shiny, too new, too much like Evan himself. I parked in the visitor's spot and grabbed the sushi bag, along with something else from my trunk, Jessica's suitcase. See, here's the thing about being married to someone for 8 years. You learn their patterns. Jessica always forgot something when she traveled. Always. So I'd gotten in the habit of packing a backup bag with her essentials and keeping it in my car, just in case she called in a panic from the airport. Tonight, that bag was going to serve a different purpose. I rode the elevator to the 12th floor, my reflection staring back at me from the polished steel doors. I looked tired, older than my 38 years. My construction worker's hands were rough against the smooth handle of Jessica's designer suitcase. Apartment 12B. I knocked twice, the way Uber Eats drivers are supposed to. The door opened, and there she was. Jessica Harper, my wife, wearing an oversized button-down shirt that definitely wasn't hers. Her dark hair was messed up in that specific way that had nothing to do with travel and everything to do with what she'd been doing for the past few hours. Her face went through about 6 different expressions in the span of 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, fear, guilt, anger, and finally, defiance. "Nick," she said like my name was a curse word. "Evening, Mrs. Harper," I replied, holding up the sushi bag. "Got a delivery for this address. Looks like someone's having a romantic dinner." Behind her, I could see Evan emerging from what I assumed was the bedroom, hastily pulling on a pair of jeans. His hair was disheveled, and he had that after-intimacy glow that made me want to punch his perfectly straight teeth down his throat. Instead, I smiled. "Oh, good, you're both here," I said, pushing past Jessica into the apartment. "This makes things easier." The place was exactly what I'd expected. Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my truck, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the river, and abstract art that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto canvas. Very Evan. Nick, let me explain, Jessica started. No need, I interrupted, setting the sushi bag on Evan's glass coffee table. I can see exactly what's going on here. You're having a business meeting. Very hands-on by the look of things. Evan had finally managed to get his pants on and was approaching us with his hands up like I was a wild animal. Look, Nick, this isn't what it looks like, I finished. Really? Because it looks like my wife is screwing around with a guy who thinks a Tesla makes up for having the personality of wet cardboard. There's no need to be insulting, Evan said, puffing up his chest. He was taller than me by a few inches, but I had about 40 pounds of muscle on him, courtesy of 15 years in construction. You're right, I said, reaching for Jessica's suitcase. Insults are for people who deserve the energy. You're not worth it. I set the suitcase down next to the sushi and turned to Jessica. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. 8 years ago, those tears would have broken my heart. Tonight, they just looked like cheap special effects. Here's your stuff, I said. I figured you'd need it since you won't be coming home. Nick, please. I changed the locks an hour ago, I continued, like she hadn't spoken. Funny thing about being married to a construction worker, I know a lot of guys who work fast. Your things will be on the curb tomorrow morning. You might want to get there early before the garbage truck comes. Jessica's tears turned into sobs. Evan put a protective arm around her shoulders, which was rich, considering he was the reason she needed protecting in the first place. You can't just throw her out, Evan said. She has rights. I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Rights? That's funny, coming from the guy who's been violating the sanctity of my marriage for God knows how long. But you're right about one thing. She does have rights. The right to find somewhere else to sleep tonight. I pulled out my phone and opened the Uber Eats app, marking the delivery as complete. Enjoy your dinner, I said. Consider the tip included. You're both getting exactly what you deserve. I was almost to the door when Evan made his mistake. He grabbed my arm. We need to talk about this like adults, he said. I looked down at his manicured hand on my work-roughened forearm, then back up at his face. You want to talk like adults? Here's some adult conversation for you. Take your hand off me, or I'll show you what 12 years of swinging a hammer does to a man's grip strength. He let go immediately. Smart choice, I said. Here's another piece of free advice. You two deserve each other. She's a cheating liar, and you're a home-wrecking coward. Match made in heaven. I opened the door and paused, looking back at them one more time. Jessica was clinging to Evan like he was a life preserver, and he was staring at me with a mixture of fear and hatred. Oh, and Evan, I said, this is just the beginning. See, the thing about being underestimated your whole life is that people never see you coming. And buddy, I am definitely coming. I left them there, standing in their glass tower, surrounded by expensive things that couldn't buy them an ounce of integrity. The elevator ride down felt like the longest 12 floors of my life. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed for the first time in months without the sound of Jessica's alarm going off at 6:30. The silence was beautiful. I'd slept better than I had in weeks, which probably said something disturbing about the state of my marriage. But I wasn't in the mood for self-reflection. I was in the mood for systematic destruction. My phone had 17 missed calls from Jessica and 4 from Evan. I deleted them all without listening and blocked both numbers. Then I called my lawyer. Danny, it's Nick Harper. Yeah, I know it's early. Listen, I need to file for divorce, and I need to do it today. Daniel Reeves had been my friend since high school, back when he was just Danny, the guy who helped me cheat on algebra tests. Now he was Daniel Reeves, attorney at law with an office downtown and a reputation for being a shark in a cheap suit. Jesus, Nick, what happened? I caught Jessica cheating, red-handed, in the guy's apartment. I've got photos, timestamps, the whole 9 yards. That was a lie, but only technically. I didn't have photos yet, but I would. Oh, I definitely would. Bring me everything you've got, Danny said. And Nick, don't do anything stupid while you're angry. Who, me? I said. I'm the picture of restraint. After hanging up with Danny, I called my job site and told Big Mike, my second in command, that I'd be late. Everything okay, boss? Mike asked. He'd been working construction for 25 years and had the kind of street smarts that came from surviving 3 divorces and 2 bankruptcies. Jessica and I are getting divorced, I said. About long overdue time, Mike replied without missing a beat. That woman's been walking all over you for years. You need help moving her stuff to the curb? This is why I liked Mike. No questions, no judgment, just practical solutions. Actually, yeah. Can you bring the truck and maybe Tommy and Rodriguez? We'll be there in an hour. And Nick, we're bringing beer. God bless construction workers. While I waited for the cavalry to arrive, I went through the house systematically, separating Jessica's belongings from mine. It was amazing how little of our shared life actually belonged to both of us. The furniture was mostly mine, bought before we got married. The electronics were mine. Even the dishes were mine. A wedding gift from my grandmother. Jessica's contributions to our household were mostly decorative. Throw pillows that nobody was allowed to actually throw, candles that were too expensive to burn, and art that looked like it belonged in a doctor's office waiting room. I was boxing up her collection of self-help books when I found it. A notebook tucked between Lean In and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Jessica's handwriting filled every page, but it wasn't a journal or work notes. It was a plan. My hands shook as I read her carefully documented strategy for divorcing me. She'd been planning this for months, calculating how to maximize her settlement while minimizing her own financial exposure. There were notes about my income, my assets, even speculation about my retirement accounts. But the part that made my blood run cold was the section titled Grounds for Fault Divorce. She'd been documenting every argument we'd had, every time I'd raised my voice, every moment of frustration I'd shown. She was building a case to paint me as emotionally harmful. The final entry was dated 3 days ago. E says his lawyer can make this quick if we can prove N is unstable, working on getting evidence. E. Evan. They'd been planning to destroy me, financially and personally, while I'd been working 60-hour weeks to pay for the lifestyle she wanted. I photographed every page with my phone, then put the notebook back exactly where I'd found it. Jessica would be back for her things eventually, and I wanted her to think her secret was still safe. Mike arrived with Tommy and Rodriguez just as I was finishing my documentation. The three of them looked like a crew from a heist movie. Mike with his gray beard and permanent scowl, Tommy with his sleeve tattoos and backwards baseball cap, and Rodriguez with his quiet intensity and knowing eyes. "Where do you want it?" Mike asked, gesturing to Jessica's belongings. "Curb," I said. "All of it." "Even the expensive stuff?" "Especially the expensive stuff." It took us 2 hours to move everything Jessica owned to the sidewalk in front of our house. Her designer clothes, her jewelry box, her collection of wine that she'd never let me drink, her exercise equipment that she'd used exactly twice, all of it went to the curb. The neighbors started gathering around the third trip to the truck. Mrs. Patterson from next door, who'd never liked Jessica anyway, was practically gleeful. "Spring cleaning, Nick?" she asked. "Something like that," I replied, carrying out Jessica's vanity mirror, getting rid of things that don't serve me anymore. By noon, the sidewalk looked like the world's most expensive garage sale. I stood back and admired our work while Mike cracked open a beer. "You know she's going to lose her mind when she sees this," he said. "That's the point," I replied. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "Nick, it's Jessica. You blocked my number, but we need to talk." "We talked last night," I said. "I thought I was pretty clear. You can't just throw me out like garbage." I looked at the pile of her belongings on the curb and smiled. "Funny you should put it that way. I'm coming over. I wouldn't recommend it. The locks are changed, and I've got witnesses here who can testify that you're trespassing." "Witnesses? Hi, Mrs. Harper," Mike yelled into the phone. "Enjoying your new living situation?" Jessica hung up. 20 minutes later, a silver Tesla pulled up in front of the house. Jessica got out of the passenger side, still wearing Evan's shirt from the night before, but now paired with jeans and sneakers. She looked like she hadn't slept. Evan stayed in the car, smart man. "Nick, please," Jessica said, surveying the wreckage of her material life. "We can work this out." "Can we?" I asked. "Because according to your notebook, you've been planning to divorce me for months. Something about proving I'm unstable?" Her face went white. "You went through my private things?" "Your private things were in my house." Emphasis on were. "You had no right." "I had every right," I snapped, my carefully maintained composure finally cracking. "I'm your husband. Or I was until you decided to start screwing around with Ken Doll over there." Mike, Tommy, and Rodriguez had positioned themselves strategically around the yard, close enough to intervene if things got physical, far enough away to give us the illusion of privacy. "It's not what you think," Jessica said, but her heart wasn't in it. We both knew exactly what it was. "It's exactly what I think," I replied. "You got bored with your blue-collar husband and decided to trade up. The only problem is you wanted to keep my money while you did it. That's not fair, you're right. It's not fair, but life's not fair, Jessica. Sometimes the guy who works with his hands is smarter than the woman who works with her mouth. She slapped me, hard. The sound echoed off the houses like a sharp crack. Mike started forward, but I held up a hand to stop him. Feel better? I asked, rubbing my cheek. Jessica was crying again, but this time it was angry tears. I loved you, she said. No, I replied. You loved what I could provide. There's a difference. Evan finally got out of the car, probably realizing that hiding wasn't a good look. He approached us with the cautious steps of a man walking through a minefield. Maybe we should all calm down, he said. I turned to face him, and he actually took a step back. You want to calm down? Here's how we calm down. You take your girlfriend and her belongings, and you disappear from my life, permanently. She's not my girlfriend, Evan said. This is just what? A business arrangement, a consultation? What exactly do you call screwing another man's wife? Nick, Jessica warned. No, I want to hear this. I said, I want to hear how the great Evan Dorn justifies breaking up a marriage. Evan straightened his shoulders, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Jessica was unhappy. She deserved better than what? Than a man who worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle? Than a man who never cheated, never lied, never did anything but try to be a good husband? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You saw a married woman, and you decided you wanted her. So you took her. The fact that she was married was just an inconvenience to work around. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Evan? Enlighten me. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For all his expensive suits and fancy car, he was just a coward who couldn't even own his choices. That's what I thought, I said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to load Jessica's things into your precious Tesla, and you're going to drive away. And if I see either of you near my house, my job site, or any place I frequent, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. Are you threatening us? Evan asked. I smiled, and it wasn't friendly. I'm promising you. They loaded her belongings in silence. It took 4 trips, and by the end, the Tesla looked like a mobile storage unit. Jessica didn't say another word to me, but I caught her looking back at the house, our house, as they drove away. Mike handed me a beer. So what's next, boss? I took a long drink and watched the Tesla disappear around the corner. Nothing, I said. Things get interesting. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Lola's bar, nursing my second whiskey and listening to Big Mike tell the same story about his ex-wife for the 100th time, when my entire world shifted on its axis. So there I was, Mike was saying, standing in my own kitchen, and she's got the audacity to tell me that the guy she's been screwing is just a friend. Mike, I interrupted, we've heard this story. Yeah, but did I mention the part where... Yes, you mentioned all the parts, multiple times. Lola, the bar's owner and unofficial therapist to half the city's blue-collar population, slid another whiskey in front of me. She was in her 50s, with silver hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that came from 20 years of listening to drunk men complain about their problems. You're brooding again, she said. I'm not brooding. I'm planning. Same thing in your case. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. This is Trina, Jessica's friend. We need to talk. It's about Evan. Trina Walsh. I remembered her from Jessica's birthday party last year. Blonde, loud, the type who drank too much wine and told everyone else's secrets. She was Jessica's closest friend, which meant she was probably setting me up for something. I texted back, not interested. The response came immediately. You should be. Meet me at the Starbucks on 5th Street in an hour. Come alone. Lola, I said, if I don't come back tomorrow, tell the police to look for my body in the river. Where are you going? To make either the best or worst decision of my life. The Starbucks on 5th Street was one of those corporate coffee shops that tried to look cozy but felt like a dentist's waiting room. I found Trina in a corner booth, clutching a venti something or other like it was a lifeline. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup, which for Trina was like showing up completely unprepared. Thanks for coming, she said as I sat down. This better be good. I've got a construction site to run in the morning. Trina took a shaky sip of her coffee. Jessica doesn't know I'm here. I figured. She's staying with Evan now. Has been since you threw her out. Also figured that. She thinks she's in love with him. And Trina leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. Evan's married. I blinked. What? He's married, has been for 6 years. His wife lives in Seattle, some tech executive who travels constantly for work. Jessica has no idea. The information hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. How do you know this? Because I've been sleeping with him too. I stared at her. Come again? Trina's laugh was bitter. For about 3 months. Started before Jessica, actually. He told me he was divorced, going through a messy settlement. Same line he probably used on her. Why are you telling me this? Because Jessica's my friend, and she's about to get destroyed. Evan's not leaving his wife. He's not starting a new life with Jessica. He's just playing around until he gets bored. I sat back in my chair, processing this information. Evan wasn't just a home wrecker. He was a serial cheater, playing multiple women at the same time. There's more, Trina said. Evan's business is in trouble. That real estate development company he's always bragging about, it's hemorrhaging money. He's been using Jessica's connections in HR to get inside information on companies that are hiring, then swooping in with his consulting services. Using her. Completely. And she has no idea. She thinks she's helping the man she loves build his empire. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at Evan, pity for Jessica, and something that might have been vindication. My wife hadn't just cheated on me with a better man. She'd cheated on me with a con artist who was using her just like he was using everyone else. Why should I care? I asked. She made her choice. Trina reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Because you're a good man, Nick. Better than she deserved. And because Evan's planning something that's going to hurt a lot of people. Including you. What kind of something? He's been asking questions about your construction company, your contracts, your finances, your reputation. He's planning to destroy your business. The whiskey in my stomach turned to ice. How? I don't know the details, but he's got connections with the City Planning Commission. Something about safety violations, permit irregularities. He thinks if he can ruin you financially, Jessica will stop feeling guilty about the divorce and commit to him completely. I stood up so fast my chair nearly tipped over. That son of a witch. Nick, wait. But I was already walking away, my mind racing with possibilities. Evan wasn't content to just steal my wife. He wanted to destroy my livelihood too. The construction business was all I had left, the one thing I'd built with my own hands and my own reputation. I drove home in a rage, but by the time I pulled into my driveway, the anger had crystallized into something colder and more dangerous. A plan. I called Big Mike. I need a favor, I said when he answered. Name it. Remember your cousin Tony, the one who works for the city? The building inspector? Yeah, what about him? I need to know if anyone's been asking questions about our permits or safety records. There was a pause. What kind of questions? The kind that could shut us down. I'll make some calls, Mike said. But Nick, if someone's coming after the business, we need to be smart about this. Oh, I'm going to be smart about it. I'm going to be the smartest I've ever been in my life. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen and opened Jessica's notebook again, reading through her divorce strategy with new eyes. She'd been planning to take half of everything I owned, including my share of the construction business. But if the business was worthless due to safety violations or permit problems, there'd be nothing for her to take. Evan's plan was brilliant, in a sociopathic kind of way. Destroy my livelihood, leave Jessica with no choice but to depend on him completely, and eliminate any financial obligations he might have had if she'd successfully divorced me for half my assets. Too bad for Evan. He'd picked the wrong target. I'd spent 15 years in construction, which meant I knew where all the bodies were buried, sometimes literally. I knew which inspectors could be bought, which permits were rubber-stamped, and which safety violations were overlooked in exchange for campaign contributions or Super Bowl tickets. More importantly, I knew that Evan's own development projects weren't exactly squeaky clean. I opened my laptop and started researching. Property records, building permits, inspection reports, all public information if you knew where to look. By 3 in the morning, I had a comprehensive file on every project Evan had touched in the past 5 years. The man was dirty. Not just unethical, actually, provably, go to jail dirty. I made copies of everything, organized it into a neat folder, and prepared for war. The next morning, I called Danny Reeves. I need you to file a complaint with the state licensing board, I said. Against who? Evan Dorn. I've got evidence of permit fraud, safety violations, and bribery. Nick, this sounds like revenge. This is justice. The man's been cutting corners that could get people ended, and he's been bribing officials to look the other way. The fact that he's also trying to destroy my business is just a coincidence. Danny sighed. Bring me what you've got. But Nick, be careful. If this blows up, it could take you down too. Let me worry about that. I hung up and called Mike. What did Tony say? You're not going to like it. Someone filed a complaint about our Roosevelt Avenue project. Anonymous tip about safety violations and unpermitted electrical work. When? Yesterday. Son of a witch. I'd been right. Evan was already making his move. Tony's going to do the inspection himself, Mike continued. He owes me a favor from when I helped him move last year. But Nick, if there are actual violations, he can't ignore them. There aren't any violations. We run a clean operation. I know that, you know that. But inspectors can find problems anywhere if they're motivated to look hard enough. I understood. Evan had probably offered Tony more than a favor was worth. Tell Tony I want to be there for the inspection. It's my right as the contractor. Already did. It's scheduled for tomorrow at 10. Good. And Mike, call the crew. We're going to have visitors, and I want everyone on their best behavior. What kind of visitors? The kind that are about to learn why you don't mess with a man who has nothing left to lose. I spent the rest of the day preparing for battle, gathering evidence, and making phone calls. By evening, I had everything I needed to destroy Evan Dorn's life just as thoroughly as he was trying to destroy mine. The only question was whether Jessica would be collateral damage. Looking at her notebook one more time, I decided I didn't care. The inspection was scheduled for 10 a.m., but I arrived at the Roosevelt Avenue site at 8:30. The morning air was crisp, and the autumn sun cast long shadows across the half-finished office building that would either make or break my reputation. Big Mike was already there, along with Tommy and Rodriguez. They looked like soldiers preparing for battle, which wasn't far from the truth. Everything's clean, Mike reported. I went through every inch of this place yesterday. Every permit's in order, every wire's up to code, every safety protocol's been followed. I know, I said, but that won't matter if the inspector's been bought. At 9:45, a white city van pulled up, followed immediately by a silver Tesla. My jaw clenched as I watched Evan get out of the car, wearing a hard hat that looked like it had never seen actual construction work. Tony Castellano, Mike's cousin, climbed out of the van. He was a small, nervous man who'd been doing building inspections for 15 years. He approached us with the uncomfortable expression of someone who wished he was anywhere else. Morning, Nick, he said, not meeting my eyes. Tony, didn't expect to see you with company. Mr. Dorn here filed the complaint, Tony explained. He has a right to observe the inspection. Evan smiled at me, the kind of smile that made me want to rearrange his face. Just making sure everything's up to code, Nick. Public safety is everyone's responsibility. Funny, I replied. I was thinking the same thing. We spent the next 2 hours going through every inch of the building. Tony checked electrical connections, measured clearances, tested safety equipment, and documented everything with his camera. Evan followed behind like an eager puppy, pointing out imaginary problems and asking leading questions. Is that junction box properly grounded? Evan would ask. Are those fire exits clearly marked? Shouldn't there be more safety signage? Tony answered each question professionally, but I could see the sweat building on his forehead. Whatever Evan had offered him, it wasn't enough to make this comfortable. By noon, it was clear that Tony wasn't going to find any legitimate violations. Everything was perfect, because I ran a perfect operation. Well, Tony said, closing his clipboard, everything looks good here. I'll file my report this afternoon. Evan's smile faltered. That's it? You're not going to check the foundation, the structural elements? That would require a different type of inspection, Tony explained. This was for electrical and safety compliance. Everything's up to code. But surely there must be something. Mr. Dorn, I interrupted, are you asking a city inspector to falsify his report? Evan's face went red. I'm not asking for anything except thoroughness. Good, because falsifying inspection reports is a felony. Isn't that right, Tony? Tony nodded quickly. Absolutely. I only report what I see, and what I see here is a clean operation. Evan looked like he wanted to argue, but he was smart enough to know when he was beaten. He stalked back to his Tesla without another word. After Tony left, I gathered my crew in the site trailer. Gentlemen, I said, we just won the first battle. But the war isn't over. What's next, boss? Tommy asked. I smiled. Now we go on the offensive. That afternoon, I drove to Danny Reeves' office with a box full of evidence against Evan Dorn. Danny looked through the documents with the focused intensity of a shark smelling blood. This is good, he said. Really good. If even half of this is accurate, Dorn's looking at criminal charges. It's all accurate. I triple-checked everything. The bribery allegations alone could put him away for 5 years. And the permit fraud? Danny whistled. His entire business is built on corruption. How long before you can file charges? I'm not filing charges. I'm turning this over to the district attorney's office. This is way above my pay grade. How long? A week, maybe 2. But Nick, once this goes public, it's going to be a feeding frenzy. Your name's going to come up, your business is going to be scrutinized, and Jessica's going to be right in the middle of it. Let her be. She made her choice. Danny studied my face. You're really done with her, aren't you? She was done with me first. I'm just returning the favor. That evening, I was sitting in Lola's bar when Trina Walsh walked in. She looked around nervously before spotting me in my usual booth. We need to talk, she said, sliding in across from me. I thought we already talked. Jessica knows I met with you. Evan told her. How did Evan know? He had me followed. Apparently, he's been having all his girlfriends watched. I raised an eyebrow. All his girlfriends? There are others. I found out yesterday, at least 3 women, maybe more. He's been running the same con on all of us. And Jessica still thinks she's the only one. Still thinks he's going to leave his wife for her. Trina's laugh was bitter. She's planning to move to Seattle with him. Seattle? Where his wife lives. Evan told Jessica that he got a job offer there, that it's a chance for them to start fresh. She doesn't know he's just going back to his real life. I felt a strange pang of sympathy for my cheating ex-wife. She was about to get her heart broken by the same man who'd helped her break mine. There's something else, Trina continued. Evan's been stealing money from Jessica. She gave him access to her savings account to help with his business expenses. He's cleaned her out. How much? Everything. About $40,000, I whistled. Jessica had been saving that money for years, back when she still thought we had a future together. She doesn't know yet, Trina said. The bank statements go to Evan's apartment, and she hasn't checked her balance in weeks. Why are you telling me this? Because in 3 days, when Evan disappears back to Seattle, Jessica's going to have nothing. No money, no home, no job. She quit to help with his business. And no friends, because we're all tired of her drama. That's not my problem, isn't it? You're a good man, Nick. Better than she deserves. But she's still the woman you married, and she's about to lose everything. I stared into my whiskey, thinking about the woman I'd loved for 8 years. The woman who'd planned to destroy me in divorce court. The woman who'd thrown away our marriage for a con man who was using her just like he used everyone else. What do you want me to do about it? I asked. I don't know, but I thought you should know what's coming. Trina left me alone with my thoughts and my whiskey. Lola refilled my glass without being asked. Rough night, she said. Getting rougher. You know what your problem is, Nick? Enlighten me. You still love her. I started to protest, but Lola held up a hand. I'm not saying you should take her back. I'm not saying you should forgive her. I'm saying that love doesn't just disappear because someone betrays you. It turns into something else. Anger, hurt, the need for revenge. But it's still love underneath it all. What's your point? My point is that revenge is only satisfying if the other person understands why they're being punished. Right now, Jessica thinks she's winning. She thinks she got away with cheating. Thinks she found true love. Thinks she's going to live happily ever after. And when reality hits her in 3 days, she's going to learn the truth about Evan, about herself, and about what she threw away. That's going to hurt worse than anything you could do to her. Lola was right. The best revenge wasn't something I could plan or execute. It was something that was already in motion, set up by Jessica's own choices and Evan's inevitable betrayal. All I had to do was wait. But I wasn't going to wait quietly. The next morning, I called Jessica's office. She'd worked in human resources for a mid-sized insurance company for 6 years, and she'd always been proud of her professional reputation. I'm sorry, the receptionist said, but Jessica Harper is no longer with the company. Since when? She resigned about 2 weeks ago. So Trina had been right. Jessica had quit her job to help Evan with his business. She'd burned her bridges just like she'd burned our marriage. I hung up and called Danny Reeves. Any word from the DA's office? Actually, yes. They're moving faster than I expected. Evan Dorn's going to be arrested tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? Apparently, your evidence corroborated an ongoing investigation. They've been watching him for months. I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. What about Jessica? She's not being charged with anything, but she's going to be questioned as a potential witness. Her name's all over his business records. Good. Nick, there's something else. The DA wants to meet with you. They might need you to testify. When? This afternoon. Can you make it to the courthouse by 3? I'll be there. I spent the morning at the job site, trying to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting to what was coming. By tomorrow, Evan would be in jail, his business would be shut down, and Jessica would discover that the man she'd destroyed her marriage for was a criminal who'd been using her. At 3 o'clock, I was sitting in Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen's office, going through my evidence one more time. This is excellent work, Mr. Harper, she said. Very thorough, very professional. Have you ever considered a career in law enforcement? I'll stick to construction. Fair enough. Now I need to ask you about your relationship with Jessica Harper. She's my soon-to-be ex-wife, and she was involved with Mr. Dorn. That's how I found out about his illegal activities. She was helping him with his business. Ada Chen made a note. We may need you to testify about how you obtained this evidence. I'm willing to testify. Good. Because Mr. Dorn's arrest is going to make headlines, and your name is going to come up. I understand. She studied my face. Mr. Harper, I have to ask, is this about justice or is this about revenge? I thought about that for a moment. Does it matter? A criminal is going to jail, and the public is going to be protected from his fraudulent business practices. You're right, it doesn't matter. I left the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Tomorrow, everything would change. That night, I didn't go to Lola's bar. Instead, I went home, ordered a pizza, and waited. At 11:30 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Jessica standing on my porch, crying. Nick, she said, I need help. What happened? Evan's gone. He left for Seattle this morning, and he took everything. My money, my car, even my clothes. I have nothing. I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 8 years. She was wearing the same outfit she'd had on the day I caught her at Evan's apartment, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Where are you staying? Nowhere. Trina won't return my calls, my other friends won't talk to me, and I don't have money for a hotel. What about your job? I quit. Evan said I didn't need it anymore, that his business was going to support both of us. I felt that strange mix of sympathy and satisfaction again. Jessica had lost everything, just like Trina had predicted, but she still didn't know the worst of it. Jessica, I said gently, there's something you need to know about Evan. What? He's married, has been for 6 years. He was never going to leave his wife for you. Her face crumpled. That's not true. It's true, and there's more. He's been arrested for fraud and bribery. His business was completely illegal. No, the police are going to want it to question you. You were listed as a business associate in his records. Jessica sank down onto my porch steps, sobbing. I've lost everything. Yes, I said. You have. Can I come in? Just for tonight? I looked down at her, this woman who'd planned to destroy me, who'd cheated on me, who'd thrown away our marriage for a criminal. She was broken, defeated, and completely at my mercy. No, I said. You can't. Please, Nick, I know I hurt you, but I have nowhere else to go. You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on me with a con man. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices. You chose to have an affair. You chose to plan my destruction. You chose to quit your job for a man you barely knew. You chose to give him access to your money. You chose all of this, Jessica. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. I know I messed up. But I still love you. No, you don't. You love the security I represented. You love having someone to fall back on when your bad decisions catch up with you. But you don't love me. That's not true. If it's not true, then why did you plan to take half of everything I owned in the divorce? Why did you document every argument we ever had to make me look like someone harmful? Why did you help Evan try to destroy my business? Jessica's face went white. How did you? Your notebook. The one you hid between your self-help books. I read every word. She buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan didn't work. You're sorry Evan turned out to be a criminal. But you're not sorry for what you did to me. I am sorry for that. No, you're not. Because if you were really sorry, You wouldn't be here asking me to save you from the consequences of your actions. I stepped back and started to close the door. Nick, wait. Goodbye, Jessica. I hope you figure out how to take care of yourself because that's something you're going to have to learn. I closed the door and locked it, then watched through the window as she sat on my porch steps, crying in the darkness. After about an hour, she got up and walked away. I never saw her again. The next morning, Evan Dorn's arrest was front-page news. The headlines called it the biggest corruption scandal in the city's history. His business was shut down, his assets were frozen, and he was facing 20 years in prison. Jessica's name was mentioned in several articles as a business associate who was cooperating with the investigation. I went to work, ran my construction site, and got on with my life. 3 months later, I got the final divorce papers in the mail. Jessica had signed everything without asking for a penny. She couldn't afford a lawyer, and she knew she had no case anyway. I was free. That night, I went to Lola's bar to celebrate. Big Mike bought the first round, and we toasted to new beginnings. So what's next, boss? Mike asked. Next, I build things instead of tearing them down. Sounds boring. Boring's good. Boring means no drama, no betrayal, no con artists trying to destroy my life. Lola refilled my glass. You know what I think? What's that? I think you're going to be just fine. She was right. I was going to be just fine. Better than fine, actually. I was going to be free. And sometimes freedom is the best revenge of all.